Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending the informational webinar for the UA Online Academy. Due to some technical difficulties that we had, I am re-recording the opening of this session so that we can post it on our website for those that were not able to attend. So hopefully summer has treated you very well and that you and our students have been able to get some relaxation and some rest. And in this webinar, I'm very pleased to be joined by Chief Academic Officer Keith Pomeroy. My name is Andy Hatton. I am the Associate Superintendent of Learning and Leadership here in Upper Arlington Schools. And in this webinar, we are going to be explaining the changes to 100% remote learning in Upper Arlington Schools. So first of all, one thing that is the same from last year is that we are maintaining the name of the UA, the Upper Arlington Online Academy. The name is the same. However, if you are here and you think that in this webinar and you think it's going to be similar or the same as last year, that is not the case. So please listen very carefully to the entire webinar. And that's due to many, many changes. So one of the things that you'll see in terms of changes on the first slide here is that we have a significantly smaller anticipated student enrollment, number of students that we anticipate that will be enrolling into the online academy this year. Also, recently, we've had some state laws regarding online learning options change very recently, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But I am proud to say that we have designed I'm proud of what we've designed, and Keith and I will be sharing that with you here momentarily, especially considering that many districts in Central Ohio are not offering any options to families for remote learning for this coming year. We definitely will not have as much flexibility due to the changes. Last year as a district, we had a lot of flexibility in our design, but this year it is quite different. So as we look at the next slide, the UA Online Academy and the changes that you can anticipate for this year. First of all, House Bill 110 was signed into law by the governor on July 1st of this year. That was just a few weeks ago. And it significantly impacted the allowable approaches to blended learning and online learning in Ohio. So we are all adjusting and in the process of adjusting to these new rules. So to provide a 100% online option for students, districts must now create a separate online school with a separate IRN. An IRN is a state ID number that is unique to each school in the state of Ohio, and students must enroll in that school. So that is one of the first most significant changes, that the UA Online Academy will be a separate school that needs to be enrolled into for this year. Now, in the UA Online Academy, students can still participate in their clubs, they can activities, athletics, extracurriculars. They will have access remotely to a school counselor, and they can attend any in-person courses that are not offered in the UA Online Academy. One of the themes you're going to hear throughout this presentation is that there is a select number of courses that we are able to offer through this online academy this year. That is another change. So please pay attention to the rest of the webinar in terms of that. Also, free of charge to families this year. As you know, we already provide the iPad and the filtering system and the learning management platforms. We are also providing internet service via hotspots to all students in the online academy. In the online academy this year, on the next slide, we will have defined course offerings, which is what I was referencing a moment ago. Not all courses that are available in person will be available online. So for example, band, jewelry making, choir, those courses need to be taken in person if the student wishes to engage in that learning. Kindergarten through 5th grade, this is another change for this year. We'll engage in a learning platform called Lincoln Learning. We feel it is better. We learned some lessons last year. Language arts, math, science, social studies, physical education, art, and music will be available to our K through 5 students through Lincoln Learning. There will be some familiarity with navigating that platform if you were in the online academy last year, because the engine that drives Lincoln Learning is the same one that drove the previous product. And then in grades 6 through 12, as you see on your screen there, we are going to stick with Edgenuity. So that is familiar to the staff members, and it's going to be familiar to our kids. Now, some of you watching this webinar also might be wondering, well, I'm considering the online academy, but what is in-person learning going to look like? So on this slide, as you see, the date of this live webinar was yesterday, July 26th. So as of yesterday, we are going to be maintaining increased cleaning and sanitizing procedures in all of our schools. Hand sanitizing stations all over our buildings, high quality air filtration, and also social distancing to the greatest extent possible in all of our learning environments, in all of our buildings. Masks are going to be strongly recommended. We are following that strong recommendation, but not mandated. So not required. So recommended, but not required. And we are going to have mask-friendly environments for all students and staff. We will follow health department quarantine guidelines in all of our schools. And of course, we're going to continue to monitor the COVID-19 data, guidance from the state and from local officials and our medical advisory team. So that is a brief overview of what the in-person learning will look like in our schools, and then the reasons behind some of the changes to our approach with the online academy. So at this time, I'm going to send it over to Keith Pomeroy, our Chief Academic Officer, who will start to explain a little more in depth about what the online academy is and is not.
All right, thank you, Dr. Hatton. As we move forward, we really felt that it would be important for you to understand what the online academy is and what it is not, based on the changes that you're going to see going into this year from last year. We also are going to spend time breaking this down into different segments for you. So we're going to focus on kindergarten and first grade first, and then you'll see us focus on second through fifth grade, and then grades 6 through 12. What I want you to understand as we go through that process is there are some differences between those different grade levels. And also, as we talk about staffing in this, we want you to know that teachers will be serving multiple grade levels. So when we say kindergarten and first, that means you're going to have a teacher, you'll have teachers who are serving kindergarten and first. But it may not look in the traditional way, like having a kindergarten teacher and a first grade teacher separate. One teacher will be serving multiple grade levels. So what the online academy is at kindergarten and first grade, and you're going to see this first bullet over and over again, is work ahead at your own pace. When you hear us talk about pacing, students have the opportunity to work ahead at their own pace, but they must stay up with the work that we're doing. As Andy will talk about at different times, we have to maintain attendance records, and we need to make sure that students are doing the work that they need to be doing. Kindergarten and first grade will be monitored and supplemented by UA teachers. So I'll explain a little bit more here in a moment about what I mean by monitored and supplemented. The state is allowing school districts to have a student to teacher ratio of 1 teacher to every 125 students in this setting. I want you to know that we will not be at that max capacity in terms of what the state is defining. As was the case last year, our ratios will be larger in an online academy setting than they would be in a traditional classroom, but they certainly won't be at the max of 1 teacher for every 125 students. Your UA teachers will be available from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. The UA teachers will provide mandatory live Zoom sessions. That is a change from last year. Last year, those were optional Zoom sessions. But if there are Zoom sessions that are being held, those are going to be mandatory live sessions. And those may be small or whole group. And at the kindergarten and first grade level, those are going to be for targeted, focused literacy and math instruction. As well as the online academy teachers will proactively connect with students regularly to build relationships, community, and support their well-being. So just building that space to support our students across the online academy. Um, One thing we want you to know going into this, if you did not experience this last year, and I think those of you who were involved with elementary students last year, this is an option that requires significant support in the home for students. And what do I mean by that? If you think about 5 and 6 year olds, 5 and 6 year olds require a lot of support. And if you're in this online setting and you're getting them into Zoom sessions and they're working in different platforms and they're in small group sessions, we just want you to go into this knowing there is a lot of support required in the home for your student, as is the case with uh, all 5 and 6 year olds. So we also want you to know that special education services will be provided by a dedicated online intervention specialist, and related services would be determined as needed based on the needs of the child. So when we look at kindergarten and first grade, that is what it is going to look like.
Thanks, Keith. So, what is the online academy not going to be able to provide this year? So, these are some of the differences. So, just to be very clear, it will not be enhanced distance learning um, that we incorporated last year to begin this last year's school year. It will not be a traditional school day with a set schedule. Students in kindergarten and first grade will not be learning through the online platform only. They will have, as Keith just outlined, some UA teachers who will be offering that monitoring and supplementation. Um, and then finally, we got a lot of questions on this last year, so we definitely want to be upfront and clarify this. It is not an opportunity to live outside of the district or be gone for extended periods of time. The Ohio law has two thresholds that must be met for school residency, which is not only owning or leasing a property in the district, but it is also defined as conducting your major life activities in that residence on a daily basis. So we just want to be really clear about that going into this fall.
So as we continue to look at different grade levels, as we focus on grades 2 through 5, again, you'll see some differences and some similarities to what we said about kindergarten and first grade students. So again, students have the opportunity to work ahead at their own pace. It will be monitored and supplemented by UA teachers. I'll describe that a little bit more here in a moment. Again, state is allowing for one teacher for every 125 students. We will absolutely be lower than that, but again, it will be slightly higher than it'll be higher than what you see in a typical classroom. The UA teacher will be available from 8 to 4, Monday through Friday. And in this case, the UA teacher is going to provide live Zoom sessions 2 times per week for small or whole group instruction and support. The online academy teachers will proactively connect with students weekly to build relationships, community, and support well-being. So similar to what we saw at the kindergarten and first grade level. Again, it is still an option that requires significant support in the home for students. So even second through fifth grade students, you may start to see some more independence along the way, but there's still a need for significant support in the home for students. Special education services will still be provided by a dedicated online intervention specialist, and related services will be determined as needed. The one ad that you'll see in this case is as you get into grades 2 through 5, you'll start to see those gifted services come into play, and gifted services will be provided for online academy students. And then again, as Andy said, when you look at the what it is not, you're going to see those repeat as we look at each grade level. So the same set of items there. As we look at grades 6 through 12, so this is going to be slightly different. So as you move into grades 6 through 12, work ahead at your own pace is critically important here for grades 6 through 12. One thing that we saw is students would fall behind. Your students will need to keep pace with the work as it is being laid out for them. So they can work ahead at their own pace. These will be monitored and supported by UA teachers. So the subtle difference there is it is rather than saying monitored and supplemented, this is going to be monitored and supported. So um, those of you who may have been involved at the secondary level would have seen office hours, tools like You Can Book Me. We'll probably talk more about that here in a little bit in order to support students who may be struggling in certain areas. Again, we will not be at the state maximum ratio. The ratio will be lower, but it will be higher than what you see in a traditional classroom. Um, as we look at subject specific needs, so you will see a UA math and English language arts teachers, UA math and English language arts teachers available from 8 to 4 Monday through Friday. Again, the ratios are going to depend, and I don't know if I've said this earlier, but the ratios will depend on the enrollment in the online academy. So as we see the enrollment come in, we'll be able to identify exact staffing for these positions. We are targeting math and English language arts as being available from 8 to 4 because you have specific needs to get feedback on writing, get grading in English language arts. You need to get a lot of feedback as you're working through those things. And we saw last year, one of the things that we learned is there were significant needs for support in math. A lot of our students, as you're working through math, there's a need for availability to answer questions through that. Our UA Science, Social Studies, and Global Language teachers, we will have teachers available by appointment through that process. So again, using tools like You Can Book Me to schedule time with science, social studies, and global language teachers in order to provide support for our students. Special education services will be provided in the same way that we talked about with K1 and 2-5. So those will be provided by a dedicated online intervention specialist, and related services will be determined as needed. And you will still see those gifted services continue to be provided as you go through grades 6 through 12. Dr. Hatton, have I missed anything there? Or we keep going? All right. So again, working with the Ohio Online Learning Program, um, the different platforms we're going to be using are Lincoln Learning at grades K through 5, and then Edgenuity in grades 6 through 12. For those parents or students who were in the online academy at the 6-12 level last year, Edgenuity is one that you are familiar with. For those who are using Lincoln Learning, it's actually built on top of a similar platform that was used last year. So the look and feel will be very similar, but the content is different. And our teachers who have looked at Lincoln Learning were very happy with the content that they were seeing and the design around the different lessons within the platform. As we look at these options, one thing that we want you to know is that when you look at the 6-12 courses in Edgenuity, any course that is not available, and we have a defined set of courses, when we look at the smaller enrollment and the smaller set of staff, we've had to really define the set of courses that will be available through Edgenuity. Any course that is not available there may be taken in the building. 12th grade students, we've had quite a few 12th grade students represented in the interest for this webinar. 12th grade students will receive a diploma from Upper Arlington High School. Those students will participate in graduation as they would normally in the building. The transcripts for those students will show that they took courses in the UA Online Academy. It is a separate IRN, so that is what we would refer to as cross-enrolling between two buildings. So they would have courses on their transcript that would show the UA Online Academy. K through 5 students, this is a question we got a lot about last year, will have access to the apps on the iPad that they would typically have in the building. We use apps like Dreambox, BrainPop. We use different Math Learning Center apps, Lexia, and even beyond that. Our teachers may be using those tools to um, supplement as they see appropriate along the way. And then we've actually linked in the presentation that'll be available after this, the defined set of courses that the UA Online Academy is offering through Edgenuity. And some of those things, as we talk about things that um, may be things that you need to take in person, things like choir are things that you're probably going to need to come into the building for. Band are going to be things that you need to come into the building for. IB courses at the high school level are not available within the Edgenuity platform. So those are all things that may be courses that, if you're interested in those, you would not find them on the defined list of courses available in Edgenuity. So just as we wrap things up, you will see that whole list available online so that you can look at what those courses are. And then I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Hatton.
Yeah, so another change in the law for this year in terms of an online school, which is what the UA Online Academy will become, the state is requiring that we demonstrate that our students engaged in their learning for at least 910 hours in terms of attendance. And it's primarily going to be calculated through the reports on the platforms. Now, we also know that there are times that students are engaged in learning when they're not online or in a platform. We are awaiting further guidance from the state and for how we can report this. But we want to make sure that we are supporting all of our children throughout the course of the year. So there is going to be an expectation this year. Another subtle difference from this year compared to last year is that we do have an expectation that students are engaged in their learning for about 5 hours a day for 180 days. Now there's some flexibility there because if a child is, wanting to work on the weekend as opposed to maybe a weekday, there is that flexibility in the UA Online Academy. But we do want to be transparent with that attendance requirement that we are going to have to show the amount of hours. Not tied to seat time and the amount of engagement is a student's progress in their learning. So I'm actually pleased about this clarification in the law that progress reporting and grades will be guided by the data on the platforms. Demonstrations of proficiency or mastery by each learner is what drives the progress reporting and the grades. And so I'm happy that our teachers will be monitoring and supporting that so that the progress reports and the grades accurately reflect what the students know and are able to do, as opposed to just logging in. So I'm actually happy about that last piece there on the grades. And then as we wrap up here this piece before we get into Q&A, we're going to talk about next steps. So the next steps, the student, your student may enroll into the UA Online Academy right now. And as you see on the fourth bullet there, the enrollment is going to open up this evening immediately following the webinar, and it's going to remain open until next Wednesday, August 4th at midnight. That's a relatively small window. However, again, with the anticipated smaller numbers, and also because, as Keith has repeatedly stated, the enrollment will directly drive the staffing. So we need to make sure that we are mindful of getting the staff on board, and so that we can get them trained up with professional learning in a timely fashion before school starts. The other thing that you're going to see on the registration form is that if you register for the Online Academy for next year. Again, it is that semester commitment. In the first bullet there, it says that this would be from August through December. If you register in this window until August 4th, you have 72 hours from the moment you hit submit on that registration form. We will not touch your child's schedule for 72 hours. After 72 hours, we are going to change their IRN in their school. We will enroll them into the Online Academy, and their schedule that as it currently exists, whether it's at the high school or Jones or Hastings or an elementary school, will disappear, if you will. So in any event, that's so that we can staff it. Open enrollment. So in December, if you would, that's the window that will open up. We're only going to have one window open up this year in December. And if students want to join the online academy at that time or withdraw and go back to their homeschool, we will have an open enrollment period at that time at the semester. That is the only time we are going to have a window back and forth. The enrollment, when we post this online, the enrollment the form will be found. You can click here. We are also, for anyone that registered for the webinar, we are going to email that registration form to you. And again, you have until August 4th at midnight. And then for anyone watching this recording or watching this live, after we finish the Q&A here by 7:30, if you have any further questions, please email us at onlineacademy@uaschools.org. Keith, anything else to add there before we jump into questions?
No, I think we're good. I think we're ready to just jump right into the questions.
All right. Well, take a sip of water because I'll read the questions and then and then if it's you, I'll kick it over to you. And if I'll take it, I'll let you know. So first question this evening, and again, thank you everyone for these questions. Just as a quick reminder, you can drop your questions into the Q&A and we will address as many as we can here in the time that we have left. First question this evening, why not require masks for K through 5 until kids are able to be vaccinated? So want to say that we have been following the recommended but not required practice for all of our summer programs throughout this summer, and that's worked very well. And that recommendation aligns with recent recommendations that have come out about recommending masking. However, we're going to continue to monitor the situation, which means which we have a meeting tomorrow with public health officials. We're also going to be meeting with our medical advisory team. And again, we're going to continue to monitor and we will continue to monitor the data within Upper Arlington as a part of our partnership with the Ohio State College of Public Health. So at this time, we're going to continue. We will be a mask-friendly environment, but we are going to recommend but not require. Second question, Keith, this one is for you. Will students on IEPs still have access to their intervention specialist via the online academy?
Yeah, so I think living this last year, I know some specific language within that question. So will students have access to their intervention specialist, I think is an important question. There will be a dedicated UA intervention specialist. So what that means is we will identify and have a dedicated intervention specialist in the setting based on caseloads and needs. What that means is that it is not guaranteed that it would be the same intervention specialist that your child may have had in the building, but there will be a dedicated intervention specialist for that purpose.
All right, thank you. Next question is about staffing. Why can't you have UA teachers teach online rather than outsource it to Edgenuity? So just to be clear, one of the things we did say at the outset when we were talking about what it is and what it is not is that it will not be an EDL approach. But based on the anticipated lower enrollment for this year, which means more students are going to be in person, it simply isn't feasible for us to provide a UA teacher for every course and provide an EDL approach. So, and also to clarify, we're not outsourcing the human interactions. Edgenuity is simply the platform. The human interactions, whether it is supplementation, whether it is support, whether it is just simply a required Zoom, which we talked about earlier, that will always be UA teachers in the online academy. All right, next question. I'll take this one as well. So it says, when were the teachers for the online academy identified for this year, and how much training have they all had on both platforms and on virtual relationship building? So I just want to reinforce once again that the state just updated their rules a couple of weeks ago with House Bill 110, and our staffing is going to be dependent upon enrollment. So again, that's why we have that relatively narrow window between tonight and midnight on August 4th. But training will be provided and it's going to be ongoing. We are ahead of the game. I know it doesn't feel that way, but we are ahead of the game compared to last year. One thing to say, this gets a little technical, but as you know, Edgenuity is going to remain as the same platform from last year. So the teachers that would be engaged in supporting those students are going to be very familiar with that. The Lincoln Learning platform, while it's a different platform, it uses kind of the same engine, the same core engine that our previous elementary platform to use. So again, our teachers will be familiar with that core engine of how it works. We've also got a professional learning partnership that we have in place because we definitely want to support our teachers in those best practices. Um, let's see. Again, we are proud to be offering an option, which is our online academy, and we're proud that we have the ability to staff it to the degree that we can, and we're proud to offer this for our kids for the fall. All right, next one. This one is for you, Keith. Will there be syllabi or a syllabus and assignments for each course, such as a fourth grade student?
Yeah, so I think as we looked at Lincoln Learning and looked at these options, so I'm going to speak specifically to the elementary to begin with because it says fourth grade student. One of the things that our teachers who are looking at the Lincoln Learning platform really liked was the way the courses lay out. So there is a very clear set of what is coming for parents so they can see how the assignments are laying out. There are pacing guides. And, one of the things that they really liked as well is it tends to focus on in each subject one lesson per day, right? So as a student is looking at items, they know that as they're opening the next item, it is one lesson, say in an English language arts setting per day. And it does a really nice job of laying out what the expectations are. So we're very happy with those features within Lincoln Learning.
All right, thanks, Keith. This next one is for you as well. Keith, how will gifted fifth grade language arts be done? Or music for fifth graders, or the arts for fifth graders?
Yeah. So first of all, I want to give a shout out to our our gifted teachers who served in the online academy last year for what a fantastic job they did supporting our students in that gifted setting. Similar to the IEP question that we had earlier, our students will receive those services from a dedicated UA gifted intervention specialist. So they will be assigned a caseload and they will work with those students. Music, art, and PE at the elementary level, and some of the elective offerings at the secondary level will be offered through platforms. So music, art, and PE at the elementary level will be through Lincoln Learning, and then some electives at the secondary level will be offered through platforms as well. But if you're taking a choir or a band, you're going to be coming into the building for those options.
All right, thank you. Okay, I'll take this next one. It deals with COVID protocols, and I think this is more about the in-school option. So the question is, if masks become required in school, will students be allowed to change to the online academy? I'm going to play this out and interpret this as it's after the window is closed to sign up for or to register and enroll in the online academy. So let's just hypothetically pretend it's October. The answer would be no. We are only changing at the semester. So the open enrollment period is right now until August 4th. And then again, in December, we will open that up again at that time. The next question, again, is similar to this one. Our decision as a family rests a lot on whether the guidelines will change to having masks being required. If that happens after the open enrollment occurs, but before school starts, will you allow enrollment into the online academy? Honestly, it's the same answer that I just gave. Once this window closes on August 4th at midnight, we have to start staffing this. The staffing is dependent upon the enrollment, and we have to get those teachers in place, let them start building relationships with each other, get their professional learning in place, and start reaching out to those students. So we have to get it set, because there's also a ripple effect, of course, on the building end of things, the in-person side of this. So the answer is open enrollment is now until August 4th, and then again in the month of December. All right, Keith, a curriculum question. Can you take both online and in-person classes?
This is a really good question, actually. This is something that we got last spring as a question as well. So in terms of this, we are asking you to make a commitment to either online academy or in person. If a course is not offered in the online academy, then you would have that available in the building. But this would not be where you're selecting from both. It is you're making a commitment to the online academy, but if all of your schedule cannot be met, those would be available to you in the building.
All right. Another one for you, Keith, about secondary specifically. When will science, social studies, and/or global language teachers be available through You Can Book Me?
Yeah. So for those of you who experienced that last year when we put You Can Book Me in place, our goal was to not have kids waiting in office hours for a long period of time while other people were in front of them. Um, what we anticipate with science, social studies, and global language is those times are likely to be outside of the school day. So after 4 o'clock, potentially on the weekend, if teachers set up times during that time frame, but those would be by appointment through You Can Book Me.
All right. Um, Next one is for me, another COVID protocol. The American Academy of Pediatricians recommends that all schools enforce a complete and mandatory mask policy. Can you please explain why UA will be going against recommended medical guidelines? So the AAP has recommended masks, and we will also recommend masks. As I stated earlier, we will recommend but not require, and we are going to have mask-friendly environments in all of our schools. We will continue to monitor the situation as we work with our local health officials and our medical advisory team. Again, we're meeting with tomorrow, and we will continue to review our local data. Keith, an enrollment question. We are a new family to UA. First, I just would like to say welcome.
Mhm.
In this case, how should we complete the registration? Just register for the online school, or should we register with UA? Oh, I can actually, let me take this one.
Yeah.
Or should we register with UA, the UA school district, then register for the online school? So actually, it's going to be the second one there. Please register with the UA schools first. Go online, go through our entire registration process, connect with Brianna, who's over here at the Graph Center. She'll walk you through your entire registration process. Then at that time, you'll still have time within this window. All new folks to our community are going to have the option to join the online academy if they so choose for that first semester. And our enrollment team will best assist you. And one thing that I also want to clarify at this time, we've been saying this is a semester by semester component, and the open enrollment will again open in December. If you are a family or a student that is going to want to stay in the online academy into the second semester, so January through May, you won't need to do anything. You'll be able to just continue with your courses in the month of January and beyond. Keith, this one. When and how will our children connect to the non-math and reading teachers?
So I think this is similar to the question that we had earlier about how to connect with science, social studies, and global language teachers. So again, we use a tool called You Can Book Me. Those would be by appointment through You Can Book Me. And those, again, are likely to be outside of school hours and potentially on the weekend as well. So you would just be scheduling those with those teachers.
Keith, can I email my teacher at any time?
Yes. So, one of the things that we found last year was very effective is just using email. Using the Upper Arlington Schools email account was the best way for our teachers and students to connect. And our students were getting quick responses that way. So, absolutely, we would say using email as well as You Can Book Me to connect with people.
All right. Next one. Keith, would the 5 hours be adjusted by the number of courses a student is taking? And I think this is getting at the total of 910 hours over the course of the whole school year.
Yeah, so I think the state is still going to be looking for 910 hours as we look at a school year for a child. I'll tell you another thing that we run into, and I'm going to speak high school for a moment. So the number of courses your child is taking is critically important along the way for eligibility and things like that. So we're going to watch course load pretty closely, but that expectation is going to remain at that 5 hours.
Great, thank you. Let's see, next one here. I can take this one. Can you drop the UA enrollment link into the chat? Actually, what we're going to be doing is emailing that link. We already have the email set to go to anyone who registered for this webinar. And then if you're on tonight, or if you're watching this on the recording, we are going to also be posting the registration form for the Online Academy to our website. And again, that window to enroll is going to remain open until August 4th. Keith, will the timing of the courses, oh, I'm sorry, yeah. Will the timing of the courses not available in the Online Academy? So for example, choir, band, those kind of things. Will they be available to see to determine how much back and forth driving would be required for families? Now, Keith, as I pitch this one over to you, right now, every student has a schedule in school, right?
Yes. So all of their requests are in. There may be things that are being finalized on their schedule
Sure.
or in school. Um, but what I would say here is we have preemptively pulled schedules just to start to look at those students who may have been represented in interest for this webinar, to start to look at what those schedules might look like. Once we have enrollments in the Online Academy, so once your child, Dr. Hatton talked about the 72 hours. So if you were to enroll your child, 72 hours after you enroll that child, we're going to start looking at that schedule, and we're going to start making decisions about what can be met or not and what might need to be done. So we have a lot of work to do, look at all of those schedules and make sure that we are best meeting the needs, and looking at if there's any possibility to create as little travel as possible for you back
Right.
and forth. But this is why the earlier the enrollment, the better. It'll give us more time to start to look at the schedule and determine what needs to be done to support your child.
Right. And I do want to reiterate what Keith just said. We'll do everything we can, if possible, to limit that travel time back and forth so that students don't have to go back and forth multiple times during the day. And obviously that question is geared a little bit more towards secondary, but
And as we say that, there are limitations within the schedule based on what teachers are teaching when. So we will do our best to look at what that looks like. But lots of changes to schedules are difficult in August.
so I'm going to lean into this next one, and then Keith, you can jump in. I know you've addressed this a couple of times. The next question is, can you take a single class or two online and then the rest in person? And so that's a little bit more of a blended learning approach, which down the road, we'd like to design those options. However, at this time, it's a 100% commitment. And so as Keith has already stated, if you register for the Online Academy, you have to take all of the courses in that defined, that we have defined as what we are offering in the Online Academy. Now, if a course is not offered, that's when we will help connect families to a course in person. So that's the way forward there. Keith, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would just say that your children, if they're at the high school level, have all submitted their course requests, even the middle level. So we're going to be working from the requests that we received as they were planning for this year. So there may be some small adjustments to that happening, but we have those course requests in. So as we're looking at that, if you commit to online, we're going to be functioning based on the course requests that were made last spring.
Okay. So I'm going to, let's see, I got the next couple here. I'm going to try to speed up a little bit because we've got about 15 minutes left and several more questions. So next one, will you have an online school next semester? So the answer is yes. We're going to have the UA Online Academy for the entire school year for 21-22. Families can enroll now, and then there will be an open enrollment window again in December. Next, is there any chance that masks will be required for K-5? One of the things we've learned throughout the pandemic is that things can constantly change, right? We were going to continue to monitor the guidance from the health department and monitor the situation while also reviewing our local data. Obviously, we would follow any direct orders, any health orders, but we will continue to monitor the guidance from the health department and monitor the situation while reviewing our local data. Next, do you have a gifted program for art and language for students? If so, how will we know the students is in the program or not? Thanks. Let's see. Sorry, I mean for after January next year. Keith?
Yeah. So in terms of, and so this sounds like a gifted identification question.
Yeah, I think that's where
So,
this one was going.
so as we go through our gifted identification process, we send out communication to families following gifted testing if your child has been identified. So we do provide gifted services for fourth graders in math. Sorry, so third grade math, fourth grade math, fifth grade math, and fifth grade ELA as well. And then that builds into the middle school. There's a focus on ELA supports for gifted. So, um, as we go through the gifted identification process, we communicate out to families if your child is receiving gifted services based on qualification for those.
Next one here is an enrollment question that I'll take. Will open enrollment to school-based instruction be it the semester or trimester for grades 2 and K? So elementaries, as we know in our district, run on a trimester, and our secondary schools, grades 6 through 12, run on a semester. Um, right now, it's only at the end of the semester. So that would be between now and December is first semester, January through May is second semester. Those are going to be the only two windows, now and in December, to leave or join the Upper Arlington Online Academy. Keith, it doesn't appear that there are actual Zoom meetings with the teachers for grades 6 through 12. Can you hit that again?
Yeah, so I guess what I would say there is our support process through office hours and you can book me has, are the ways that we have supported children. One thing that we would say is as we got into the year, if we felt there were opportunities to create additional Zooms, then we would create those. But what we want to start with is making sure that we're providing support for students within their content areas and then build upon that as we get into the school year.
Keith, we got this one a lot last year. How closely do these platforms, so we're talking Lincoln Learning for elementary and Edgenuity for secondary, how closely do they align to what's being taught in person? And I want to just expand upon it. How closely does it align to standards?
Yeah, so in these cases, all of these platforms are aligned to Ohio's teaching standards. So as we're looking at platforms, we are looking at the alignment to Ohio standards to make sure that they um, mirror what we're following in the in-person classrooms. So our teachers have looked at these platforms, have made adjustments. Over the last year, obviously, we made a lot of adjustments within these platforms. I think the differences you will find might be in the pacing or the order that certain things are presented. But the standards that are covered are clearly aligned to what we're teaching in our classrooms as well.
So this is one that I'll take on COVID protocols again, and it's kind of the opposite of the something we've had previously. Is there any chance the students physically attending in-person school would be relegated to virtual learning or EDL again, or remote learning as things might change with the virus? Well, as we've said earlier, and as we've all lived through this pandemic, we do not currently anticipate this. However, if things drastically change with COVID protocols or with the pandemic, we will, of course, communicate this with families with what, if any, learning pathways need to change. Again, and this is going to be in consultation with our medical advisory team, local and state public health officials, and any orders that would come down. But we will always openly and transparently communicate with our families. Again, we don't anticipate that, but we'll keep communication lines open. Keith, what percentage of students were enrolled in Online Academy last year, and what percentage are you expecting this year? I don't know if we have those percentages, but I know we have some numbers.
Yeah, so not that I lived this closely at all last year or anything, but we did start the year with, I believe, 917 students in the online academy last year. So we were over 900 at points. We saw some fluctuation in those numbers throughout the year. But we had a pretty significant number when you look at over 900 students in grades K-12. What we're anticipating this year, and we're really based on interest in this webinar, and um, trying to use that to gauge what our interest might be, and through some surveys that we did in the spring, we are estimating approximately 250 students at the high end grades K through 12 this year.
We had a couple specific questions that start to get into the platforms and such. And I do want to also let you know, if we haven't mentioned it already, that we will be having online orientation for our students and our families for those that commit to the online academy. So that will be coming with all of those details about how this is going to work. One more time, again, if you're new to the district, please register with the district first, and then with the online academy if you so choose. Again, enrollment at uaschools.org, and we can best assist you with your initial registration, or go to our website. If a course isn't offered in the online academy, could you change that course during the schedule change period time to one that is listed?
So that sounds like a course change request. So
Yeah.
it sounds like if you had selected a course and that course isn't available, if I'm reading that correctly, then maybe you're looking for, could I replace that course with something else? We do have a course change process that we follow in the district. So we do some course changes. So that would be a potential option if I'm reading that correctly, Dr. Hatt.
Okay. Yep. Keith, I'm going to take a couple questions and I'm going to let you mentally prepare for the senior capstone question and how that might work for seniors taking it in the online academy. But while you're thinking about that, will there be the ability for elementary kiddos to go to school with a hybrid model this year? So let's just be clear. We are only able to offer two options, and that is in person, full in person, and the online academy. A blended approach was not going to be possible this year. The next one I'm going to take here is partial homeschool available for students enrolled in the online school. The answer is yes. We are a district that offers partial homeschool, which means parents can homeschool their students for certain subjects and then send their schools to some in-school subjects, or we will treat the online academy families the same way. You're 100% registered and enrolled in the online academy, but if you choose to homeschool a couple of subjects, you would be able to do that. You would just simply have to fill out the homeschool notification form, which I can help you with that. All right, Keith, how would the senior capstone project work this year for seniors taking the online academy?
So I think that we would have to follow this. Andy, Dr. Hatton will take some work to make sure that we have everything set the way that we can. I think that because of what we did last year for senior capstone, this would not be available on the platform. So this is something that we'd have to create an opportunity. This may require going into the building for these capstone course work options if we're not able to make something happen through a distance learning scenario. So we would
Okay.
have two options that we need to work through there.
So we have a question now about the flexibility within the workday for the child. Could they flex their time on a given day? Like maybe they go a little less one day, like 4 hours one day and 6 hours the next, to accommodate a family's work schedule, and maybe even a little bit on the weekend. So do we have that kind of flexibility this year in the online academy? So it's yes, with a few caveats, okay? Students are expected to work ahead at their own pace. They can either keep up with expected pace and teachers will check in with them on that, or they can work a little bit ahead. And also keep in mind that if there is a Zoom meeting, it is required this year as far as attendance is concerned. Now, if a family has a significant conflict, we will work with that family. Please inform the teacher. But because of the accountability with the 910 hours at the elementary level or even at the secondary level, when the teacher, and we will give advance notice, we will commit to not springing a Zoom on someone that in less than 24 hours, but we will send out a schedule and those will be required. So there is some flexibility, of course, built into this. So 4 hours one day, 6 hours the next. Keith, do you agree?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I would say at the secondary level, one of the things that we saw last year is we really were looking at time over from a Monday morning until a Sunday night, right? So how is a student doing in terms of keeping up with that work during that time frame? So I think that gave some flexibility about when that work was happening. But again, live Zooms are going to be required at this point, and when those things are scheduled, that caveat needs to stay in place.
I think we're going to make it, Keith. We got 4 minutes. How will you track the number of hours referenced, especially in elementary, and will time spent off the computer count? Yeah, we know that not all learning takes place on a screen. In fact, that's not what we want. Of course, obviously, we still want kids reading books and pleasure reading. Like I said, we're going to need to work with the state to figure some of this out. I know, to the shock of no one, they haven't articulated all of that yet, but we are going to communicate that attendance guidance moving forward. In hopefully we have it ready for those orientations, but we will be very clear on how we will account for those 910 hours. Has the quarantine algorithm changed since the spring? No, not to date. But again, we do have a meeting with public health officials coming up. What is the district's target ratio for teachers to students in the online academy? Keith, do you want to take this one?
I think that in terms of the target ratio, we really need to see what the enrollment is. We know that the one teacher per 125 students is not where we're going to be, but it's going to be completely dependent on the enrollment that we have within the online academy. So it's hard to target a specific number right now.
Yep. Were the parents and students happy with Edgenuity? And how did you decide at the elementary level on Lincoln Learning as opposed to Accelerate? Is Lincoln Learning significantly better or more user-friendly or fun than Accelerate? So just real quick on Lincoln Learning, and I'll let Keith address Edgenuity. So Online Academy teachers who vetted Lincoln Learning did feel that this platform provides better content. But keep in mind, for our youngest learners, we still need that support at home. Helpful changes and more positive features than Accelerate. So Lincoln Learning did come out a little bit. And again, it's kind of that same engine, which is called Buzz, which is the engine that drives Lincoln Learning, is the same one that drove Accelerate. But we need that coach involvement, especially at K1. Keith, any thoughts on Edgenuity?
Yeah, so I think for those of you who were in the Secondary Online Academy last year, we used multiple platforms. I will quote a parent who said this to me today. They said, Edgenuity seemed to be the one their children liked the best. I think there were multiple platforms. Edgenuity did a very good job with content. You know, it was the one that we used the most last year, I would say, and provided good options for our students. I will say too, Lincoln Learning, we were very impressed with what we saw in Lincoln Learning, and we think that it adds some really good features for what our students need at the elementary level.
As we wrap up, we've got one last question, or two last questions here. For those who choose in person to begin the school year, do they still have the chance to transfer to the online academy? And as we've said a little bit this evening, yes, that would be at December. We're going to have an open enrollment window at the end of the semester, which is December. And then Keith, would there be any more information regarding senior capstone that maybe we could send out to any senior that might be worried or stressing out right now about it?
So I will say this to you, and hopefully if you were a parent or a student in the online academy last year, I will not sleep if I don't have a solution for this. So we will find a solution for this, and we'll make sure that we have solutions for seniors who are in that capstone setting. So you should not spend time right now worried or stressed out about senior capstone. We will solve any of those questions for you very quickly if you're a senior and you need to have that requirement fulfilled.
Thanks, Keith. And so, folks, we've reached the end of our hour webinar this evening, the information webinar on the UA Online Academy for next year. I want to thank Keith for joining me and for all of the work he has done. Michelle Banks, our teaching and learning team, to put this together, because as we wrap up, I want everyone to keep in mind that, again, House Bill 110, which changed the rules for online learning and blended learning, was signed just a few weeks ago. So we are still adjusting, and I really want to thank you as parents and for the community for all of your patience as we've been interpreting this law, working on how we can offer an online learning experience to meet the needs in our community. And I also want to give a special thanks to our Board of Education for supporting us in these options for the students that need this for the upcoming school year. So again, thanks, Keith. Thank you all for being here tonight. If you have any questions, please email us at onlineacademy@uaschools.org. Have a great evening, and go Bears.